Hello, and welcome back to the Next Frontiers of AI podcast, our 20th episode. Our objective is to partner with industry pioneers to explore the challenges, innovation, strategies, and real-world stories shaping the future of enterprise AI. I'm Scott Hebner, your host and principal analyst for AI at theCUBE Research. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we're going to tackle what I believe is one of the most mission-critical imperatives facing enterprises in 2025, the AI talent crisis. There's little doubt that AI represents the transformative force of our time, and that's why 9 in 10 companies are accelerating AI technology spending, with most declaring it their most important and strategic priority. Yet, while technology investments soar, a parallel imperative is being left somewhere up in the stratosphere of leadership attention. The imperative is to win the battle for the best people. And here's the reality. A recent Pluralsight survey of more than 1,200 technology leaders found that 9 in 10 do not have a complete understanding of their AI talent needs or the proficiency of their AI teams that they have right now. So think about that. 9 in 10 leaders are accelerating technology spend, and 9 in 10 leaders are unsure of their talent foundation. That gap should stop every executive in their tracks. The stats are daunting. Only 2% believe they are on the roadmap to achieve organizational maturity for AI. 90% of CXOs admit that they're not confident that they're building a future-ready skill base for AI disruption. 7 in 10 tech leaders say their org is struggling to secure or retain AI talent, and that jumped up from 28% only 2 years ago. Meanwhile, generative AI and agentic roles have surged more than 1,800%. And it's a global problem. In India, for example, for every 10 open generative AI roles, there's only 1 qualified applicant. The bottom line, AI skills market is becoming the battleground with enormous stakes. And if past waves of transformation are any guide, talent and culture, not the technology, will determine who leads, who lags, and who simply fails. Business as usual won't cut it any longer. In this episode, we'll go beneath the headlines to explore the hidden forces shaping the AI talent crisis, the demand-supply imbalance, the retention fault lines, the global sourcing shifts that are underway, the way agentic AI may reduce dependencies on human capital, and the advent of hybrid adaptive professions, thanks to the world of AI agents. Joining me today to unpack all of this is Justice Erolin, Chief Technology Officer at BairesDev. Justice is on the front lines of building and scaling AI teams for some of the world's most innovative companies, and he brings a unique perspective on what it will really take to close that gap. So Justice, thanks so much for taking the time to be here. Welcome to the show.
Nice to be here, Scott. Thank you for having me.
You bet. So why don't we just start a little bit with a little bit of background on your background. So can you just tell us a little bit about your personal journey that led you to where you are now as CTO at BairesDev, and maybe give us our audience a little bit of background on what your company is all about.
Yeah, so I started in my career close to 25 years ago as an engineer. As a simple .NET engineer, moved into front-end development, then into data engineering. And then moved into what I would call the foundations of what AI is today. That's essentially data analytics, data engineering, data modeling. I did that for about 5 years in advertising and looked through a number of different attribution models to see how we can find out what advertising works for the largest brands in the world. One of my projects had to deal with building out what we called at the time an omni attribution model, essentially multi-touch, multi-channel, and I looked to BairesDev for help to help augment my team. I fell in love with the whole process of trying to find the right people, of getting the right folks in the room, and eventually I came on board because I was so in love with the process that I let me put it this way. I was so hard that I became an employee. And that's how I started here at BairesDev.
That's awesome. I wish I knew you a long time ago when I was a CMO at IBM, because attribution models are the most contested thing besides the quota models at any
Exactly.
company, right? Is like, does marketing really do that? And is the advertising really paying off? And what about this campaign? So, I know it's a complicated space, and hopefully AI is going to help bring a lot of value to that over time.
We could do a whole podcast just on that.
Yes, you can. No doubt about it. All right. Well, let me kind of frame with a graphic, sort of the whole conversation that I'm hoping to have with you today. And I think this kind of sets the stage here, right? So 74% of enterprises, according to our research, are reporting that they're struggling to find qualified AI talent. And they're also saying 40% of existing AI skills, people, the employees that have them, are actually considering leaving for other jobs. So 7 in 10 can't find the right talent, and then 4 in 10 are having a problem retaining that talent. And the result of that is something like anywhere from a 50% to 100% increase in salaries that many of these AI skilled people are getting. So the market's becoming more expensive, which makes it harder to find people, harder to retain. Is this sort of what you're seeing as you are out there with obviously a lot more companies talking about talent than I am?
Yeah, absolutely. It's essentially the Great Resignation, but part two, and now it's fueled by AI. What's interesting about that stat is the shortage isn't just PhD level machine learning engineers, right? These are not just folks that have the academic background to build out AI models, but it's also the applied AI engineers, the folks that can responsibly incorporate AI into production using models from OpenAI, from Google, from Meta, etc. And so it's two sides of that coin, and I would say the bulk of that 74% are going to be on the applied AI side. The ones that make the news, the ones that you see from Meta and OpenAI, where they're stealing each other's AI engineers, that's I want to say that's a fairly low percentage, and that's not for every company, right? If
Right.
you're building out, let's call it, if you're a tire shop and you're trying to apply AI into your current ecosystem, you're not hiring an OpenAI ML engineer that has 5 PhDs. You're looking for somebody that understands the technology and can apply it to your specific business case.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. And while some companies may need PhD level skills, most don't.
Mhm.
But even given that, I think the talent is quite daunting. I mean, let me just one of the things that we do as industry analysts at the beginning of every year is we provide predictions. And so I put out 6 predictions back in January for enterprise AI, and 2 of them are very relevant to, I think, our conversation today. So one, I argued that there's 2 big shifts that will shape the AI talent marketplace. First, software developers are increasingly taking on the role of data scientists and AI engineers. And second, enterprises are inevitably going to turn to AI talent augmentation, right? And that would be through outsourcing and through the application of AI agents to bridge those gaps. So, from your advantage point, are you seeing this kind of trend play out, and how are they shaping the AI talent marketplace? I mean, do you think I'm on the right path? And be honest, obviously, that those are 2 big things that need to change and be addressed.
Yeah, that first prediction that you mentioned of having software engineers be AI engineers, that's currently in play. I don't think that's a prediction anymore. That's a reality. But what I'm seeing now is that there are companies that want it all. They want a single person that can build out their front end, their back end, build out their cloud infrastructure, and also integrate with AI models. We're no longer looking at unicorns. We're looking at a purple squirrel at that point. We are trying to find the one person that could do everything. And with current salary ranges, you're looking at even a higher rate. What companies should be doing instead is looking at a good mix of skill sets across a full team, and not just putting all their eggs in one basket on one person, because if that person does have churn later on in the future, which is part of career growth, part of what most people do. Now all of that domain knowledge, all of that institutional knowledge is out the window.
Right. And that's why, and I also think just the pure, supply and demand numbers that we'll get to in a second here, because I got a graphic on that, is, you're not going to be able to hire enough people. So you're going to have, directly hire into your company. So then there's companies like what you guys do that can help augment those skills with people, right? And then there's the AI agents, which we'll get a little bit into a little bit later. But back on that first prediction, let me just bring up a graphic here. This is some of our research, and the yellow line is showing the growth in software developers. Actually, it has the Q is wrong here, but the yellow line is the software developers, right? So there's going to be a 25,000, growth in newly hired software developers this year. That doesn't mean the total number hired, just from the previous year. So it's incrementing, and by 2030 it would be 200K a year. So obviously software development type skills are becoming increasingly in demand. But look at the red line, right? Those are what we would maybe call a hybrid role here, which is there's software engineers that are also AI engineers, and that skill set is fusing together. So our data shows in 2025, 190,000 new roles we hired for that type of hybrid role. But look, it goes up to 800K by 2030. So that's a 36% compounded growth rate. So the expectation is if you're a software developer and you want to continue to be viable and make good salary and have meaningful jobs, building out those AI skills are going to be absolutely critical, right?
Right. We did a study on our side as well. Devs at our company I would say at least half of devs in our company are looking for AI and ML skills. And so we've been training them constantly over the past few months. I would say since January, we've trained at least half of our engineers on the use of AI tools and AI agents to help augment their existing workflow, their existing development workflow. And that's allowed us to, number one, speed up velocity for our clients, where we can get more features built out in a constrained amount of time, and also increase productivity of our engineers. But two, it allows us to essentially retain that talent, because now that they had the need to be trained, we trained them, and then now they're actually using that within production level environments.
Yeah, and the challenge is going to be that pure AI skilled people coming out of universities and existing jobs, there's not going to be enough of them, and therefore you have to, again, augment them with, upskilling existing people like software developers. And again, we'll keep coming back to the AI agents, which we'll get into, and the augmentation. And the part of the reason, if we peel these statistics back even a little bit more, bring up another chart here. What we're finding here is, first of all, there's right now, in terms of jobs that are being posted, there's a 2.3 times gap in supply and demand. In other words, the demand is significantly higher than the ability for people to hire. The supply is simply not there. I believe it's going to get worse as time goes by if we don't do something differently. Because if you look at higher education, so this is universities, right? And not just PhDs, but basically any university at any level, there's a 4.4 times gap in their ability to meet the demand. They don't have the capacity to bring in enough people fast enough to then spit out. And what's resulting out there as we go through time here is a 10 times gap in new entrants that have the skills versus new jobs, because they're creeping into the marketplace, but the need for the new jobs and the hiring is just going through the ceiling. That's a very, very daunting problem, not to beat a dead horse here. And that's why I'm really intrigued by these ideas of hybrid professions, like the software developers becoming, AI engineers, companies like what you guys do, which you can come in and quickly and efficiently augment the skills, right? By sourcing them from different parts, like in Latin America and things like that, even on site. And then, the big unknown is how much of a role are these agents going to take as they mature over time. It's a really fascinating conversation, and there's so much technology discussion going on out there. And, I follow this marketplace for a living, and just not enough on the talent side of things, as we're pointing out here.
Yeah, and there's another. I would say even maybe anecdotal. What I'm seeing in the market are new grads are having a hard time landing a job, even though there's plenty of jobs out there. The problem is that companies aren't willing to take a bet on the new grad, and so they would rather hire a senior level dev or a dev with experience with AI experience rather than a junior developer with zero production level experience.
Hmm.
And so let's say 5 years from now, you're going to have a bunch of senior level devs that have AI experience that are now retiring or getting out of the market or moving into leadership roles, and they're not getting backfilled with previously junior level devs that have now the experience of a senior level dev to take on the mantle. So there's going to be a big gap, not only now, but even worse in 5 to 10 years, where the market's going to shrink even more.
Right. So I mean, the way things are right now, just in the United States, this gap probably means hundreds of thousands of jobs will remain unfilled. And it's interesting that people aren't willing to take the risk of newly skilled people coming out of universities and building that new talent with such a huge gap. And the only way to get around that gap is offer a lot more money in terms of salary and bonus and all that stuff, which, you know, is not necessarily affordable for everybody. So what do you think is really underneath this imbalance? Is it really just the demand is so high we don't have the skills? But you're pointing out there's actually a reluctance to bring in new people, and they're trying to repurpose existing people. Is that sort of what you think's at the core of it?
No, they're trying to use, so some clients, if let's say they have 10 openings, right? 10 potential roles, they'll get an influx of hundreds of applicants that are brand new from university. And they'll deny every single one of them, partly because they don't have the production level experience that they're looking for. What I'm seeing instead is that they're looking to augment their team with folks like us, which we're more than happy to do. Um, but now we're essentially creating this bubble of talent that will keep retaining the experience and not giving it to the new generation of engineers coming forward.
Hmm.
Um, it's a dangerous game that we're playing, and we're gonna have to pay for it in about 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, fascinating. On a recent, I want to get your take on this. On a recent podcast that I did with Arun of Rajan, who's at Ascendian,
Hmm.
and they have like hundreds of agents. They're basically redefining, reimagining the software development lifecycle, with agentic AI. And he argues, this notion that agile is going to die a slow death, that technical skills, like people that have Python and things of that nature, are going to become less central to success with the advent of AI agents, because they're going to take on so much more of the design execution, and the people that they're going to want to hire. I think, which what you're saying kind of connects with me, is people that have more experience, that are able to actually guide the process, make strategic decisions. The emphasis is on directing the agents versus doing all the heavy duty work. And let me just show you a chart that we used during that conversation. And this is the notion of this adaptable hybrid profession, right? Where, agents today are starting to, automate tasks, right? Generate code, help you do testing. They're absolutely amazing at that because they can build off repeatable patterns of what worked in the past, right? And they have enormous, obviously, ability to do statistical, swimming in these huge data lakes and of code and all that stuff. Where it's heading, though, is these agents are going to start actually helping these developers make the right decisions, right? And understand the consequences of those decisions and problem solve. In other words, it becomes more goal oriented. I want to build this, right? Versus telling it how, that you need to write code to do something, which is more task oriented. And eventually these AI agentic, workflows, these platforms are going to have autonomous automation with hundreds of these agents, and they become effectively digital labor. They're digital coworkers that are then managed by the people that are responsible for designing, building, testing, in deploying and maintaining the software versus them doing it all themselves, which puts less of a burden on the hardcore technical skills. So curious to your take on that. In other words, where do you see agentic AI agents as they actually become truly intelligent and decision-making entities, which they aren't today, but they're going to head in that direction? Changes the game a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, so AI agents are already coworkers. We have deployed them already within BairesDev. We're using them for a number of different tasks like code reviews, test creations, test automations, things of that nature. As you mentioned, repetitive tasks that follow a specific pattern. What matters here is what you mentioned is the orchestration of those agents, and that's where engineers really come into play, and that's where we essentially can guide agents safely in a production level environment. So that way, we're taking off some of that low level tasks from an engineer and have them focus on the higher strategic items like architecture, design, systems level thinking, etc. Are they going to go in and ensure that a function is very strictly written in Python? No, the agent can do that.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that they stop learning and understanding Python and understanding the nuts and bolts of the technical ecosystem. It just means that they're doing less of it. There's an internal joke for folks that are developers. The worst part of being a dev is reading someone else's code. But now with AI agents, that's almost your primary job. So there's still going to be that need to understand what the agent has written or has reviewed or has verified. But it's not going to be your primary responsibility. You're going to be there to ensure that what is being written, what's being produced, is verifiable and good. It's what we call the human in the loop interaction. There's going to be agents, but that human is still going to be an essential piece of that puzzle.
Yeah, they're becoming the supervisors, they're becoming the architects, they're becoming the managers. They're the ones that are ultimately accountable for whatever stage of the SDLC they're in, whatever they're building, and but more of the deep technical work in the coding and all that. In other words, you need to know how to build, in this case, software, right? But you don't necessarily have to do it. You're more supervising it with more and more help as time goes by. I mean, I think that's sort of the net of it.
Right. Like a general contractor instead of being an electrician.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly my view, and again, this goes back to my predictions, and hopefully we'll see how those turn out. But I think you're basically saying that this notion that the agents are going to be acting increasingly at a greater rate to help actually not only build new solutions, but to maintain them, to test them. And the human component is going to be the specialists that know how to do all this. And the goal is going to be to not replace developers, but which I think I think all this AI replacing humans is for most professions is not really going to happen. It's going to give them superpowers, right? To do more and more and more, be more creative, more innovative, higher productivity, so on and so forth. And business will have to make the decision. Well, does that mean you can cut people, or does that mean you can do more and be more successful, right?
It's definitely the latter. We're going to see more productivity. It's akin to when Photoshop was first introduced. It didn't get rid of any photographers. It just made them much, much better.
Yeah. So looking ahead here, let's talk a little bit about not only where you see AI agents helping bridge the talent gap, but also what kind of new career paths do you think these AI agents are going to provide for anybody, right? I'm just curious because I think my argument was in the prediction was software developers are going to become AI engineers, right? Especially with the help of generative AI and AI agents and as agentic workflows kind of kick in, which is what we just talked about. But I suspect that there's going to be other people with different careers, perhaps not even technical, that are going to be able to get into this game.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with product-related folks or product resources. So product managers, product owners, UX, UI designers, etc. Now they're no longer dependent on a single engineer or a team of engineers to get prototypes or proof of concepts out, they'll be able to run through ideas very, very quickly. So we're going to see a very interesting churn of ideas that go through and fast failures, which is exactly what we want from the product side, to test out the market very, very quickly, and then have now a full engineering team build out those concepts into more production level ready applications.
Right.
So,
And one of the ways of dealing with the gap here, which is, I think we're both definitely agreeing that is occurring and going to get worse, is you got to repurpose other skills. And the secret sauce is going to be a combination of, again, in my view, and I think you're saying the same thing here, which is it's going to be a combination of the technology through agentic AI agents, with the ability to dynamically, flexibly, and very quickly augment skills from people like you, right, when you need them, right, and help. And I know from have been working with you guys that you actually don't just have technical, hardcore technical people, but you have architects, you have strategic managers, you got a lot of different kind of skills that can very quickly augment a business and get them going as they build skills. And so I think it's that combination of taking existing talent that may not be an AI developer, evolving them into the skill set with agents. It's being flexible with the augmentation through outsourcing, right? And then it's going to be obviously looking into the marketplace, because you're still going to want to have some core AI engineer, like deep skills, and that's where you're still going to have to fight that battle. But businesses got to be thinking, holistically here.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we've done with our internal folks. It's not just the engineering talent that we've trained with AI. We've also trained UX UI designers, QA, DevOps, even project managers and Scrum Masters on AI agents, so that way they can see the full SDLC, the full gamut, and increase their skill set, increase their productivity. So we're not just looking only at software engineers becoming AI engineers. We're looking at every role within that life cycle and seeing how we can elevate their productivity.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked to a lot of businesses, this is a side example, that are taking their business analysts, their what used to be business intelligence, people that use like Cognos dashboards or Tableau or whatever, and they're actually using agents to try to turn them into AI developers, which is, you would never think if you were a business analyst using Tableau that you may end up being part of a development team, but that's happening out there.
Yeah, and it's because they have such a good grasp on data that they almost understand what the AI will do, similar to how an engineer will understand what a compiler will do based off of certain instructions. They have that intuition to get that done.
Yeah, they're taking on the data science elements of it, I guess, and but that today is becoming AI. So another example of that hybrid profession. So I'm going to just dig a little bit deeper into especially for our audience, what you guys are actually doing at BairesDev. You have these internal tools like the talent retention tool. You got team recommendation engine. And I know they've been extremely successful, right? They've cut attrition by 50% or so. Can you walk us a little bit through how these tools work and why they matter so much?
Yeah, the talent retention tool, that was a brainchild. Actually, we won the CIO 100 award for that model. All it does is takes an employee's compensation history, skill sets, performance metrics, etc., the full picture, and then determines the risk of attrition. What that allows us to do is, based off of that risk, we could then be proactive and understand what we need to do to retain that talent, whether it means a pay raise or an upskilling, or even a change in a project. That has allowed us to retain upwards of 50% of our existing attrition cases, to make sure that we're being a little bit more proactive in that. Attrition is a costly thing for any organization, and especially because it's our business model, we want to retain our talent as much as we can. But for other companies, when you risk attrition, you're essentially risking domain knowledge, institutional knowledge, and the cost of onboarding another engineer of that same caliber that you've trained up over years.
Yeah, and I know, go through the statistics here. I know obviously your business runs on having the best skills, and I know you guys have what, like the top 1 or 2% of skill set out there,
Mhm.
based on the amount of people you hire versus applications. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, we have about 2 million applicants per year, and
Wow.
we hire only the top 1% based off of what we're seeing in the market and what the need is. And so that allows us, one, to retain the best of the best, or to attract the best of the best, but two, offer that kind of talent to our clients, our 500 plus clients all over the U.S., Canada, and Europe.
Yeah. So do you find that they, like the best of the best, they enjoy going from a different company, a different project? I mean, through you guys, you're not doing one project, one company. You get more diversity of experience, right? Because you may be working with multiple clients over some period of time.
Right. So what we found is that um, our best engineers tend to like to stay at a single project or a single company for as long as possible. There
Hmm.
might be some instances that we've seen in that talent retention model where they might want a new challenge. Like, for example, if they're seeing another skill that they want to develop, they want to utilize that new skill in a different project. It could be with the same client, it could be with a different client, and they'll ask for a um, a change in their current workflow. Um, but for the most part, like I'm looking at some of our best, and they're staying at our clients for upwards of 4 years. And
Wow.
so these are not small little 2 month projects. They're staying on for as long as they can because they love solving problems and they love being part of that of change or positive change for our clients.
That's awesome. Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I think becoming part of that augmentation model, um, I just think it gives people a lot of flexibility and a lot of experience. And you stay on a project for a long period of time, relatively speaking, but you're not tied to. And I'm not talking about your company. I'm talking about your clients, right?
Mhm.
Because some people do more than one client, correct?
No. So our
No.
main business model is essentially, if you augment with us, you will have that person for as long as possible, and they aren't there's no context switching, there's no mind sharing, no bait and switch. Where that's essentially your guy for as long as possible.
Right. And if they do shut down a project or they whatever, then that person gets to go on to another project. And
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. I think it's a great business model to be a part of, frankly, what you guys are doing. Obviously we're doing this podcast, and I express my views. I think this is a really, critical part of where this marketplace is going to head. Um, Actually, since we're talking about your clients, could you maybe give an example of a client? You don't necessarily have to name them if you can't, but accelerated their AI initiatives by taking sort of a different
Yeah,
approach for talent
yeah,
acquisition or even retention.
yeah. So we worked with a client in the legal space that wanted to utilize AI as part of their product offering. So essentially, that team was an R&D team. The internal client team was an R&D team, and we worked with them to, number one, set up a number of proof of concepts to test out which Gen AI model works best, which problem they wanted to solve, and then based off of that initial finding, I believe it was about 5 proof of concepts, they took one of them and then moved it into full production. We were able to essentially develop an application for them within 4 to 6 months of just pure MVP, and it cut down their. And this part I can't fully say, but it cut down their processing time from about 21 hours for a single workflow to only a couple of minutes. And
Wow,
that was purely AI driven.
it's incredible. Well, let me just bring up a sort of a chart, summary chart that I was going to show. Assuming that we hit all the right points, which I think we did. But I think this is the bottom line. Just want to get your thoughts on it. So what it's basically saying here, and I've used this with several clients before, which people seem to resonate with it. Which, so Deloitte as an example, businesses are focused on extending their workplace strategies because of AI. and in particular for AI. And it nets out to, you got to tap into on-demand AI talent. That's sort of what I think what you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Also outsource some or all the projects, which is something that you guys also do too. So in other words, it's a big part of it. And obviously, you need to really focus on creating these hybrid professions where you're augmenting existing skills that may or may not be an AI skill from its origin, and by using these AI agents. And what you're basically building out here is an interdisciplinary, an augmented team of people and agents and outsources that have different skills. It could be a very powerful model versus just keeping battling in this AI talent marketplace that has such a huge gap, and you're going to be paying top dollar. Is that a reasonable reflection of what you think the landscape looks like?
Absolutely, it's not an all or nothing type of deal. You can utilize your existing team members. You can augment with companies like us, and then you can also augment it additionally with AI agents. And that collaboration between all three allows you to, one, utilize your existing institutional knowledge and among your existing team members, but two, increase velocity by adding on folks like us, and then three, utilize new AI agents to help increase velocity even further. So that three-pronged approach is a killer move, and I wish more clients would do that, or more companies would do that, because then you go from 0 to 100 very, very quickly.
Yeah, posting AI jobs out on LinkedIn or Indeed and then going and fighting those battles, obviously needs to happen, but you can't rely on it, and you have to do all these other things.
Right. So, I imagine that a company's hiring process for, let's say, from the time they open up a job rec on LinkedIn to the time that they get someone, butt in seat, is anywhere between 3 to 6 months. Yeah. And a lot can change in the AI space within 3 to 6 months.
Right. And then, like we were saying before, you get them, and then they get offered an even higher paying job or something, and the retainment thing's tough. And well, look, so before we wrap up here, if you had one piece of advice for any of the executives that may be listening that are struggling with AI talent, what would that piece of advice be? And while you're at it, what resources are available to learn more about what you guys do and how you can help them navigate this wild west of AI talent and solution sourcing that is definitely starting to become a bigger deal in the market?
Yeah, I think, for the execs that are hiring AI talent, the biggest danger is trying to find that unicorn or that purple squirrel. It's just not going to be found, and you're competing with everybody else trying to find that same person, if that person exists. So utilizing a company like us will help you get to that AI level, AI readiness level that you need to be at. But we can get that within 2 to 3 weeks or less. And we've proven that time and time again. And we already have the capability, the resources, and the knowledge to get you into a place of actual development rather than just, let's call it ideation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be fascinating to watch this and see how it shapes in the years ahead. But look, I can go on forever on this subject. I do think it's one of the most critical dialogues that the industry should be having. But we kind of have to wrap up here. But this has been incredibly insightful and a very helpful conversation. I'm sure the audience found it very valuable. I don't think the message can be any clearer that while AI may be that transformative force, certainly of our era, it won't go anywhere without the right talent strategy. It just simply won't, and technology alone, is not going to determine who wins in the different markets and the different industries. It's going to be the people, and you got to get out there and act, and you got to, you don't want to lag, right? You certainly don't want to fail. And that's why it's time to get really focused on this. Because, again, all the evidence shows, and just in my conversations with companies, that, talent is thought about, but it's not a strategic imperative. It's just sitting, like I said before, up in the stratosphere somewhere and not getting the time and energy and investment that it needs. And those that are being successful are doing a lot of the things that we talked about on this. So, Justice, thank you again for taking your time and sharing your expertise and insights on this.
Scott. It was a pleasure being here.
All right. And to our audience, best wishes to Justice as he continues to help solve the talent crisis out there. And for everyone listening, thank you for being a part of our 20th episode of the Next Frontiers of AI podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, where we'll continue to bring you the stories and the strategies shaping the era of AI. Until next time, I'm Scott Hebner. Thanks for listening. Take care and bye for now.